Hi, Warren Whitlock here with today's information on the podcast. We want to, since it's early in our series, I want to go back to the basics and talk about blockchain. Quite often, people ask me about crypto. They ask me about whether or not Bitcoin is going to be worth $1 zillion next week, and all sorts of questions. Oh, and then my favorite: will this new meme coin break the records, shoot to the moon, and make the most money? Those questions and more in today's "What Really You Should Be Concerned About Blockchain for the Future." And let's start with the first one. All of that I just discussed is probably something that you shouldn't be paying too much attention to. What really matters is how blockchain is going to change your life, your business, and the way everything works in the next few years. So let's talk about the basics of what blockchain technology is. And I promise we'll get some crypto in there someplace. Let's talk about the basics of blockchain. First of all, blockchain is intended to be decentralized. That's my favorite part of blockchain. A centralized control means you set up a system with a hub and spokes where the top of the pyramid decides everything down the chain to the bottom of the pyramid. And in all cases, what it's going for is to have control over every little bit of things from one person or one small group. That's the way businesses, governments, and everything has been organized forever. Although there's a natural thing as you get into systems bigger than, say, a family, having central control starts to have some problems. For one, you've got wars over who's going to be in charge. Um, so the idea of decentralization is paramount to anything talking about how to organize things. And my other podcast, Decentralized Conversations, all started with the idea that what if the future is all decentralized? We get rid of institutions that try to control small groups of people or individuals. So that's what drew me to blockchain at the first. Bigger than Bitcoin, bigger than how does this work? How do I make money? Is the idea that control gets down to wherever you want it. It's decentralized, including no one is in control, and we trust the contracts to do that. And we'll get to that in a moment too. So decentralization, that's very important. And that's why you hear about crypto being possible, because there's a lot of computers in separate locations running with separate owners, with separate power, and the only thing they all share right now is a connection. And we'll talk about how you can even avoid that here in a moment. So that decentralization is the most important thing. And that means you can have a distributed ledger. And that's actually how it works. Instead of keeping a ledger with who owns what and who controls what, it is distributed across all these machines. So a distributed ledger means that if I have a spreadsheet and you have a spreadsheet, they have to say exactly the same thing. And we use spreadsheet, as you recall, I'm often say this, spreadsheet is a database. So everything runs on databases, all the customer records, sales records, your recipe cards, all your contacts on Instagram, everything, the pictures on Instagram, all are kept in a database. And that's the structure of how you keep things. There's some other names for it, and there's some discussion technically on when it's a database and when it's not. But there's file systems and things like that. But think of the world, the digital world, as being all stored in databases. And often I'll interchange spreadsheet because that's a metaphor everybody understands. Rows and columns, that's fields in a database. And sometimes those structures just go completely different. But again, that's technical. And so the other thing you need is some sort of consensus mechanism. And the most simple of that would be, I'm going to put down the email addresses of 10 people, and then I'm going to count the number of characters, and I'm going to put that number at the end. and then I do 10 more email addresses, and I add that the first number plus all the new ones to get the second number. But then I subtract that number and add the next 10, and then make it so that's the new 10 unique number, or some formula like that. The one I just stated may have holes in it, but the theory is that you take something, you get a checksum of what identifies that they're that it's the same. So you have a couple of ways to look at it. If I'm looking at your spreadsheet and you're looking at mine, and we both come up with that same checksum number, we then know that there's a good chance the material's the same. And with cryptography, that gets generated in a way that's not as simple as counting the characters. So in encryption, my encryption matches what you get. They can be shared with a public and private key, meaning that the long chain of characters is what you've seen for these, up to thousands of characters that can only be kept in a file in a computer. You can't memorize them, but I give you my public key, and I have my private key, so I can log into something and look at everything you've sent me that comes to my public key, whether that's crypto or just a file, and make sure that the only ones that can see it are you and me. So that cryptography is used a lot in how the blockchains work. You don't need to know any of that to be able to send crypto or do a lot of the other things, and put in a record or edit, change a record. It's just a matter of all that's done in the background now. Who can remember those long strings of numbers? And so having the cryptography in a distributed fashion with a contract of how we're going to agree with each other, and then instead of it being you and me, it's our computers. That means we can build a network, and the more computers we add to it, the more secure it is. And so now, where will we use this kind of blockchain? The big one that you know about is Bitcoin, the crypto blockchain, where there are going to be 21 million Bitcoins. There's just under 20 million right now. And then by the time it gets done mining them all, which will take another 100 years because they keep reducing the number that they mine. And at that point, it will be fixed. And that's what makes the value of Bitcoin work so much. That's a public blockchain everybody knows about. Another thing we do on a public blockchain is the files of this podcast. Currently, most of the hosting for podcasts is not done this way, but it could be, where I have a private broadcast and I send this out to you and to anybody else that wants to see it, but I have the key to get in and change it. And I also have the key to verify who can have the public key. And at any time I want, I can destroy that public key, and then it's kind of like in the public domain. People with the key to watch it can see it, but nobody else. And I no longer have rights to edit it. That becomes very important in creating something that will not have somebody take control and steal it all. Very important in the money part of it. A private blockchain would be you and me set up so that the computers on our network talk to each other. We don't have to tell anybody else, but we use this blockchain technology to make sure that all of our files are kept safe and encrypted. And no need for a backup because there are multiple copies, because I've set it up on my home computer and my office computer, and you've done the same, and we've got a server farm someplace else that's got 2 or 3 machines, and they're all encrypted and all can keep whatever it is we want to put on it private. Private blockchains used in large corporations, not so much the example I gave you. That's just a simple way to explain it. Consortium blockchains are also used. Same sort of thing. I think really what matters is most of what you care about is going to be on a public blockchain, unless you're inventing something and getting really into where you need that distributed ledger and whether or not you're going to build an app on top of it and those sorts of things. At that point, the basics of blockchain are, I think that's an advanced course that I'd have trouble following. That's a technical thing. For the everyday user, it's a matter that all these things can be done, and it's what keeps the data safer than anything. And my favorite example of that is I have had podcasts and blogs and other content that I've created and then changed what I was doing. So there's maybe 400 episodes, but I haven't been back to see them. And one day I go and say, I wish I could get out episode 34. And I find out that the company that was hosting them is gone. With a blockchain, that can't happen because everything is distributed. I advise a company, Cubicles, that uses contact center software to control how calls are routed and which call center or contact center. Today, a lot of the contact doesn't have a phone, so they're not called call centers anymore. But how those are saved. They had a breakthrough by putting it all on blockchain, and now because of the rules and smart contracts with it, they're able to store all of the recordings of every call. Now, are those recordings secure? Yeah, because when it comes time that no one needs to access it anymore, there is no public key. There's just the private key to that the company recording them has. And at the point they destroy the records of the key, it's gone. And even though that record lasts forever, there's no way to get to it. And it's also encrypted if anybody did figure out how to get to it or where it was and how many different machines had pieces of it. So there are every kind of place where you store data can be enriched by using blockchain technology. And that's a very broad general statement. There's still particular little things that certain software do better in certain ways, or the blockchain is too much overhead for the security and whatnot in setting it up. But literally, it's getting to where you can set up and be operating with the blockchain for your security, for IDs and things like that. And it can only take minutes to set one up. So, and storage does not become a problem because instead of paying for storage of where you're going to keep all those records that say record every phone call, then there's that's now taken care of in the cloud or by computers, or there it still gets paid for, but those people get paid, and that's a lot of where all the cryptocurrency comes from. So let's get a little bit into the crypto as promised. Bitcoin. If you haven't invested in a cryptocurrency and you're looking to do it, the first piece of advice I'll give you is, why are you looking at anything other than Bitcoin? Bitcoin is money. It's going to be around. There is conceivably a possibility that it could all be destroyed and go away, as could gold or diamonds or anything else you're storing things in. The only thing more real than Bitcoin at this point would be maybe land, where so far I haven't seen any way to completely destroy the land. You can set off a nuclear bomb and then maybe you won't be able to ever do anything with the land, but it's still there. We haven't figured out a way to go all the rights going down miles into the Earth's core and remove a piece of land. Outside of that, the math that makes Bitcoin work is just, they haven't figured out how it could possibly be broken. When the quantum computers get so smart and the AGIs take over, and we're all like toasters to the I guess bugs. We're all like bugs to the AGIs. Maybe, who knows? But it's not something to worry about. And that's Bitcoin. And the way it was set up, and it does have something where it can't be changed. The guy who invented Bitcoin, Satoshi, doesn't change it. It's been set since 2009, and there have been no changes to the basic structure of what a Bitcoin is. They found some limitations, and they built some other things that operate on top of or to the side or around Bitcoin. And the number one of those is Ethereum. And Ethereum was made so the things that Bitcoin was having trouble doing, Ethereum could do better. Ethereum got out of hand for how it was charging to get things done, along with other problems with it. And Ethereum also has a group of people that can make changes to it. And there has actually been like a big fork where some of the people went one way and some went another way. So there were two Ethereum and more kind of malarkey like that. Now it doesn't happen with Bitcoin. But Ethereum being the second one is in use by major corporations, governments. It's around the world as being a way to get things done and execute the smart contract, which we'll get to in a moment. Let's make sure we've covered everything. Bitcoin, let's see, we covered 21 million. It's all on a blockchain. It's the reason blockchain works. It was invented. There were things before Bitcoin, but when Bitcoin came together, they took the best of class in cryptography and in what could be done with the processing power at the time, and all the rules and all the ways smart contracts would work, and put it together. And that means that I can send you money and you can get the money without me having to physically do something with the money I'm holding. So just like I can log into a PayPal account or Venmo, let's try to be hip and newer. Venmo is the one that my kids use. I can Venmo you some money, and then you have that, and I don't. But that's centralized. That's controlled by Venmo. Which same with PayPal, same with your bank. Your money is in a bank and then transferred to something else. With Bitcoin, I can have the Bitcoin in a hard form on my end, a wallet where the cryptography is holding it and no one else can get to it. I can then connect it to the internet and send some of it to you and then disconnect it from the internet. And it's still my Bitcoin that I've got, except for the part I sent to you. But if it was a wallet full of coins and bills, I can't send them to you without destroying the ones I have or figuring out some way. I have seen people try to stick it into the DVD player on their computer, but that just doesn't work. So it's just not going to be ingested. You can't hold it up to the camera and then it takes a picture and is gone. Interestingly enough, currency has serial numbers on it. So a system like that could conceivably work. No one's ever tried anything like this, where you print out a piece of currency and I destroy the piece of currency I have, and it's all kept in some central ledger with the serial number. Well, that's still centralized, so why not just have the government control all of the currency? And of course, digital currency doesn't have that serial number. So the architecture of Bitcoin allows it to be on thousands of machines, keeping that ledger, and you'd have to get 51% of the machines running Bitcoin to agree to get rid of to change a record or get rid of something to be able to get the consensus. So that's built in. Let me see. So it is a currency, and the other ones aren't. So back to Ethereum, it works a little bit differently. It's got the same mechanism. It's built a little bit better for smart contracts, and they're even better than that. So let's talk about smart contracts. A smart contract is when I tell my escrow company that I'm going to deposit the deed to my house, and you're going to deposit a certain amount of cash. And when that's done, the escrow company gives you the deed and me the cash, and we are all happy. That, of course, requires physically having an escrow company and paying a human being to do that. When we put that into a smart contract, it's a little bit different than when you buy something on an e-commerce site. You buy something on an e-commerce site, they take your money and you trust that they're going to ship you something. And in fact, you pay with a credit or debit card, and the bank trusts that you have the money in the right place. With a smart contract, I can transfer to you a certain amount of currency. You can transfer to me whatever needs to be done that can be done electronically. For instance, you post an electronic signed deed to me, and then I get it and I countersign it or do something with it, and we record it in some way. Maybe the government needs to know that we've recorded that. But whatever gets done, and then that money is released to you. In a simpler way, if I want to sell you something with the smart contract and you're using and it's digital, I want to give you the deluxe version of this podcast, including before it got edited and all the goose removed. And you're going to pay me for that $1. Or I probably should be paying you, but you're going to pay me $1 to be able to view the one with my goose, and so to be able to do that, you need to transfer a certain amount of cryptocurrency to me. The smart contract takes care of that. I never have to be involved. We can trust it. We can trust each other without knowing the two parties involved. And it can be multiple parties, and it can do a number of things. So in the future, you'll be able to say you're ready to buy the house, and you'll be able to go to the house, hold your smartphone up to it and take a picture and put your thumbprint on something and say, I'm at the house and I'm agreeing to buy this. And you say that in there and it's recorded someplace, stored on a blockchain. And no one can ever say that, of course, I need to be the seller to say that. I'm selling you this house and I relinquish it, would be okay. Don't even need to be at the house. So, and in the future, transactions can be taken care of with all of the little things that have to do. If it requires an inspection of the property, somebody inspects the property and then signs off that they've done it. So everything analog can be represented in a digital form, which kind of brings us to NFTs. An NFT is just right now, it's a non-fungible token, which means it's a token representing something and having a serial number involved. So it works a lot like a dollar bill would work. It has a serial number. There's only one of them. But the difference is everybody can view it or whatever. All the digital rights are there. I also have the rights to do something else with it. I can take my funny looking monkey and make a TV show about it. And there's no licensing rights issue because I own the license to that likeness of a monkey. A very simple way to do it. That's what made the NFTs and some of the memes a craze, which gets us into why we're sticking with just these, telling you about Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe a few others. I invest in some others. I invest mostly as an advisor. I do work. I get part of these. I found companies, and then I get some of the equity on what's happening. And there's some things that are happening. There's some ways to launch a company much faster than traditionally. Instead of having to go out and find rich people and say, "Will you give me some Bitcoin or Ethereum to let me start this company?" You let a crowd do it, and there are 1 million shares available. Right now, that's done with tokens. Here in the U.S., we're required to not have anything that is a security. And of course, I can't give you security advice, nothing like that. There's a whole bunch of rules about what you can do, can say. I can't tell you which tokens to buy. Number one, I don't know, so don't trust me. Number two, there's licensing involved with that. And so I never give you an advice of which one to buy. I can tell you about companies. I can tell you what they're doing and why that's important. But investing is all up to deciding whether or not you want to put that risk on there, which is not my job. But the one company I advise now is launching other companies. And they're at starter.xyz, and they launch companies. They launch tokens. They do it very, very efficiently, do it over and over again, and mostly non-US. But and non a whole host of countries. There's rules for each one. Some have to be qualified investors. Some can be, you can invest $100. There's other things going on, games right now, where the game tokens are a blockchain and you can trade them. And there's an economy of doing that without there being any cash or dollar value on whatever they're doing. And so here's a couple of other things that I want to cover as to what can be done to tell you why it's not all cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency, certainly a lot of fun. Boy, I like that I took some Bitcoin as payment some time ago, and they are just sitting there, just maybe someday being worth a whole lot, and I'm counting on it. But I'm not suggesting it because I don't give investment advice. But things that are more practical is supply chain management. If I'm going to ship something to you and I put 100 on a pallet and they get shipped by truck to a depot where they're put on a bigger truck or a train to a seaport and shipped around the world, maybe flown someplace, and then finally there's a truck and it delivers it to you. How do we know there's 100 there? I'll tell you how we used to do it. We used to write through carbon paper and have many copies of the form, and each person that touched the shipment kept a copy. Then some 30, 40 years ago, we got most of it put onto computers, and now even if there is paper, it's there, and hopefully terminals for each one. But it requires a human to enter a number and verify things, and usually that is, the pallet says it's got 100, it's got 100. And now through serial number registrations, anything, they can actually track something from the time it originates till the time it gets to the user. And if anything's missing, you know that the paperwork wasn't forged, or it wasn't a problem of somebody entering a 9 instead of a 4 because somebody's 4 looked too round. Or was that a 0 or a capital O? Those kind of problems. Heaven forbid somebody should try to read my handwriting after 40 years of using a computer. It just doesn't work too well. And all sorts of mistakes can be made. I make mistakes typing things in for sure. If we eliminate a lot of that, then we can trust what's coming. That also works for farm to table. So I've got a client that is past. I don't think he's currently doing it. I worked on shrimp farms, ponds, and they're in Thailand. And there is a little bit of algae that shrimp can get that can end up wiping out a whole pond, and you have to get rid of thousands of shrimp. But instead, they have a technology that watches for that, identifies where the shrimp came from, and then goes back and takes out that portion of the pond or something before it can even. They've now got it so microscopically they can see it before it even becomes something that anyone would notice in a finished shrimp. And they can do that anywhere in the chain because it's going to be entered. I think that particular one's probably still on a database someplace, but the idea is the blockchain would then make that an immutable record kept in distributed fashion, and anyone could do that. There's several of those. I'll leave it at that. We might do an episode on supply chain sometime. There's so many things implicated, so that when you pick up a shirt at Walmart, Walmart knows what color shirt you bought. And it used to be when I learned to do retail, you made projections and tried to guess how many of each size you needed. A lot of that's been just taken out of the system. They know instantly what to put on the truck coming out tomorrow to replace what was bought today. Far from perfect. I order a lot of stuff online from Walmart, groceries, and not perfect yet, but it will be. It's getting better and better every year. Digital identity. All the times you log in and have to fill out the CAPTCHA of trying to see whether there's a crossroad or traffic light or bicycle in a picture, match the letters that are all screwed up. Tasks that a human still do better than a computer. And then, of course, remember a separate password for each thing, or have to get a message on your phone to re-identify you. That can go away when you get an identity that's strong enough that once you get in, say you're sitting at home on your computer, everything you go to just works. And that's phenomenal. It also can handle money, and with whatever layer of security you want to put on it. Another one is voting systems. If every voter, whether or not it's a company stock voting or voting for your political leaders, if you have an immutable record that's just you, no one else can do that but you, and it can also be verified in a lot of ways, depending on what the smart contract is for the voting. And so a recount would mean certain procedures had to be followed and certain proofs had to be made. And it really does get to the point where it beats paper ballot. Uh, Obviously, lots of controversy on voting machines replacing paper ballots, but when done right, someday it's going to do it, and blockchain is going to be a big part of that, and digital identity. There are so many ways we can use blockchain. Reward systems, anything that keeps track of points, or did you get the thing punched on your card? All those kind of systems can be enhanced and made better by having some sort of usually a non-fungible token, and which are called NFTs right now. Hopefully someday digital assets will be called something else. It is the deed for a real world thing. So again, let me sum up. I don't think I've covered well enough why you don't want to go out to all the millions of things. Unless you're building those kind of things, don't invest. If, in my case, I'm helping people, giving business advice, some marketing things that I know, and I get a piece of the company rather than get paid cash. And you can do the same thing. That's fine. But if you're looking to invest, think about investing in some Bitcoin. Don't invest your whole net worth in Bitcoin. That's not investment advice. You can if you want. Uh, but you decide. And the other thing is, consider that everything you put into those kind of things, whether it's the next meme coin of apes or dogs or whatever, whether it's one of those or it's Bitcoin, consult your financial advisors and use your brain and do some study on it. I'm just saying that if you're not looking at Bitcoin as being the new money, you're not ready to get fully what's going to happen with the crypto stuff. And beyond that, I tell you, get involved with the company. If it's something in your industry, get involved with a new startup that's doing something like this in that industry and see how you can help. The rewards there might be many times what you get off of a passive investment. And that's it. We've talked about the architecture of blockchain, how crypto works, how smart contracts work. If you have any questions at all, leave a comment or get a hold of me. I'm on all the socials at Warren Whitlock. And I do read everything that is sent to me, and I'd love to hear from you. And we'll see you next time.